listen, darling. Why they glad to have you back where you belong. You looking swell, darling. I can tell, darling. You keep going, still going, you stay going strong. Yeah, bro. Never. Ba-da-ba-dee-ba, old favorite tunes when they win. Oh, yeah, bye. Hello, rap, what? Get on in there.
In 1919, Congress famously approved the 19th Amendment to the United States, officially banning the use and manufacture of intoxicating liquors. Called the Noble Experiment by Herbert Hoover, the Prohibition Act was intended to transform America into an alcohol-free nation. After several decades of temperance movements, the period marked a distinct social and cultural change in the United States. However, despite the changes, the Prohibition Act is generally considered to have more negative effects than positive.
By the time the Prohibition Act was passed in 1919, efforts to limit alcohol use were nothing new. The temperance movement in the United States began as early as 1820. Organized groups, in particular religious and women, began pushing for bans or limitations on intoxicating liquors, convinced that America had fallen to moral degrade and that God would no longer bless them. By the end of the 19th century, temperance had enough support that, in late 1919, Congress was able to pass the 18th Amendment and win the necessary amount of states needed to ratify it.
Now, when Prohibition began, it was mostly spearheaded by two main groups, the Methodist Church for one, and female rights groups for two. These groups really, they started their campaign on one major selling point, and was the fact that barley and wheat used to make alcohol could be used to feed the troops in World War I. Now, this is a foolish point because World War I was over before Prohibition even began. Now, personally, in my opinion, I don't see the point of Prohibition at all. See, I could take a delicious sip of this wonderful Cabernet, and I'd be totally fine. See, I'll do it right now. Okay, maybe 2 sips would be good. Maybe a little more. I have to go.
Okay, so Prohibition, it first went into effect on January 21st, 1920, and it mainly had support. It was hugely unpopular, but it first had a huge supporting amongst mainly southern whites in rural areas. It had almost no support in urban cities. In fact, everyone in the cities, they didn't follow Prohibition at all. They still drank, they still, they went to speakeasies almost every night. It was a complete failure in the cities. I mean, in the rural areas, people didn't mind so much, but But they might as well have been trying to dry up the Atlantic Ocean with a post office blotter, as one man of the time quipped. Almost immediately after legislation, signs of failure began to show. Loopholes were found quickly. For example, the amendment never actually prohibited the drinking of liquor, only the manufacture of it. Additionally, the use of alcohol in medical uses was not prohibited. Needless to say, many doctors were writing alcohol prescriptions.
Prohibition. I was terrified. I should have read it. I should have. It's not. It's not. And if it had a fly, and I smell it, and I tell you, it smells me.
Well, I'm Big Joe, and I remember exactly where I was the day I found out about Prohibition. I was just sitting there on my front porch, drinking some whiskey, having a good time, and a part of my soul died that day. But part of it actually lived too. Did you know alcohol causes liver disease? I didn't know that, and apparently it's bad for you. If it wasn't for Prohibition, I would probably never become the man that I am today.
ところだやなおえたましたところだでときれていめとこなストタイドロトとこなだたりましたとこなとたんねとこなスタイととりはんぞとこなストたかたないところだないとこなだしてるばないとこなスタイが出ましたとこなたばないそうなんだばい
Prohibition, it can't just take a bunch of cultures and that, you know, they're based upon drinking alcohol, like the Germans, the Irish, where a very part of their culture involves drinking, and try to make a new culture where no one's drinking at all. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And that's one of the reasons why it really did not work out.
Here's the money. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, well hello there. Now as you see, it's kind of ridiculous for the government to disband the consumption and production of alcohol. Because really, just putting aside a problem doesn't mean you're going to defeat it entirely. If you think about it, if you were a mole and you were outside of your home, your little burrow, and you came out and the guy with a gun came, where's the mole going to go? Underground. And where is the alcohol consumption and production going to go? Underground. Now excuse me, I gotta go shoot some meth.
Prohibition had on society were profound. Within weeks, within days, even the most law-abiding citizen was turned into a hardened criminal. The effects were tremendous.
Prohibition was supposed to raise the morals of the people in America, but ended up doing the complete opposite. Led people to start hiding from the cops. You know, organized crime, and now you gotta start practicing your fighting skills just to go out in the streets, turn everyone into a gangster.
Hey Jacob, how's it going? You know, once Prohibition started, I became a gangster. Selling underground drugs and booze.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, some people say I'm not a gangster. Some people say I just sit here on this elliptical machine all day, pulling up and down and up and down. To tell them, I am a gangster. Some people say gangsters don't have feelings. Hurts our feelings when you say that.
In the 1920s, many people produced alcohol in whiskey stills such as this one. Now, most of the stills were shut down by the ATF. However, some, such as this one, still survive today. Fermented corn mash is added to this kettle here, where a wood fire, located underneath the kettle, heats the ferment to a boiling point which alcohol, which has a lower boiling point than water, would evaporate at, go through this tube, and cool down in this barrel into whiskey.
Bitty, 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 come, kitty, 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 come, come. Come, kitty, 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 come. Now, some say the legislators in this country just make these laws just to see how the citizens react. Is this true?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, of course. Yeah, well, yeah, of course, it's true. Sniffles. It's okay. No, come back, Sniffles. Oh, sorry about that. I got it back. As I was saying, legislators in our country make laws simply to see the citizens go nuts. I mean, do you think the legislators drink alcohol? Of course. Now, if you excuse me, I have plans with an egg that I cannot break.
Franklin Roosevelt campaigned against Prohibition during the 1932 election, and it was a stance that helped propel him to the White House. Finally, in December of 1933, the United States admitted failure and repealed the Volstead Act. Prohibition, with all its lofty moral goals, had at last come to an end.
In conclusion, Prohibition was, at best, a noble experiment, and one that was doomed to fail from its onset. After 13 years of legislation, the amendment was repealed by the 21st Amendment, and just in time for the Great Depression. I'm Francis Doyle, and thank you for joining us on Mysteries of History. Cheers!
We're the Dancing Woolberries, and this is Prohibition.
Prohibition. I was wishing on a better day. Prohibition. What have you got to say? Probably nothing, 'cause you're an idea. Prohibition.